Hello.
Hi, so nice to see you. Why don't we start
Yeah,
off where you give
yeah.
yourself a nice introduction? I have a lot that I want to, pick your brain about. You do
Okay.
a lot of incredible things. So we'll talk about all of it, but give us an
Yeah.
introduction.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, hi everyone. My name is Cecilia Iliesiu. Everyone calls me Cece. I am principal dancer with Pacific Northwest Ballet, and I've been dancing professionally for 14 years, I believe, at this point. It's like after 10, you're like, I
Blend.
don't really know what's happening. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey. I was born and raised in New York City, Manhattan. Went to the School of American Ballet for a decade. Started my career at Carolina Ballet, where I became a soloist and danced for 6 seasons, and then transitioned over to PNB, where I've been for seven. So, yeah, it's been an incredible journey and still learning so many lessons. Started a mentorship program, as I think we're going to talk about later, during the pandemic, and that has been a really big growth phase for me because as I'm like helping students process things, I'm processing things myself. Or I'm like, wow, you're so much more ahead than I am because I'm just going through this right now, and
Yeah.
you're 18 going through whatever you're going through. So there's been that. And then I recently came back from Ghana where I was teaching teachers in Accra, and it was an incredible experience. We can dig into that if you want. And then my third and final project is my small business called Ballet Life Coach, where I help pre-pro students get their resumes and cover letters and videos and photos all prepped and feeling good for the upcoming audition season. So we've definitely had a build up. Audition season starting now, but it's been incredible. I love every single part of the things that I'm working on. So
Being in a bunch of different places at one time, from traveling to having your
yeah,
business, and also playing such an
yeah,
integral role, especially for younger dancers as they work to
yeah.
make the transition from pre-pro to professional. And that's really the first topic that I want to dive into today is just this word transitions, because this can be one of the most
Mm,
challenging aspects of a dancer's life. And the
yeah,
reason for that is because as dancers, we experience transitions starting from such a young age. Most often, these young ages also are parallel to just the natural transitions that happen, with our bodies and our lives, and going, moving into adolescence and teenager years and all of that stuff. So having to throw on top of it auditions and pre-professional programs is so challenging. So why don't we talk a little bit about two things: your personal experience in regards to transitioning to a principal role, because I haven't yet spoken about that, and then we can get into like the
yeah,
mentorship work that you do.
yeah. Kind of before we dig into me, as you were talking through that, it made me think that so many of these pre-pro students have like either grown up in the school that they were born and raised in, or they went to another school that they were invited to after summer program. But when students are auditioning for companies, it's the first time that they are
Yeah.
intentionally making a transition. And like how challenging that can be. I've had a couple students that have grown up in a certain school and they're like, I just feel really scared leaving my
Mm-hmm.
home, my like safe space, and going somewhere else. And they've all ended up very happy and like happy with that transition, but it is super scary because there's so much unknown. So we can dig into that a little bit more. But transition into principal. Uh, yeah, so as I mentioned in my intro, I had been promoted to soloist at Carolina Ballet. So I was familiar with that transition. It felt like, I had deserved that role. I was already doing a lot of soloist roles. And I was excited for this new title. It felt safer
Mm-hmm.
than principal dancer.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get my gist. And so then when I got promoted at PNB to soloist is actually during the pandemic, 2020, it was September, I believe, and we were all sitting at home. And so I was on my couch with a glass of wine, like watching myself being like officially promoted.
Yeah.
So definitely a different experience than normal. Um, And so then my promotion to principal this last September just felt like a lot bigger. I guess first off, I'll just be completely honest. I never thought I was ever going to be promoted to principal in my career. Not that I'm not deserving, but I just, there are other people that probably were going to get it above me. And I never like obviously like I'm working towards the
Sure.
highest my career can be, but I never was like I need to be a principal dancer. And so when it did happen, I felt this like anxiety that like
Mm,
am I good enough? And I'm still struggling with that a little bit mentally of like there are so many talented dancers and I'm like so fortunate to be recognized for my hard work and I need to make the most of it. So it's been an interesting transition uh, mentally, as I said. And then physically, it's also a very interesting transition because
right.
I'm not dancing as much. Because when you're a core, you're doing all of the grunt work pieces, you're in rehearsals all the time, whether you're just standing around or you're dancing, but you're involved. And then maybe you're learning a couple soloist principal roles. And then when you're a soloist, you're learning soloist roles and then maybe some principals, and you're still, it feels like a little bit of a healthier balance. And then as a principal, you really have a small select number of roles that you can do. And they're all like, um, you maybe have 1 or 2 hours of rehearsal a day. And then the rest of the day is like free for you to do whatever conditioning or work you need to do. And that's just a very different lifestyle that I'm also still transitioning through. Like Nutcracker, I'm used to being on every single show, and this run I was maybe in half of the shows. And it's just you feel different. You don't feel as connected with your coworkers. You don't feel as in shape because you're not on stage. Your body's not as broken, thankfully. But
Not that I expected anything less, but I do feel that
yeah,
many younger dancers, look at these promotions
hmm
as being, of course, the ultimate goal, which it can and very well should be. But I do think I've worked with some
yeah,
dancers who will achieve these goals and then actually experience a certain degree of, it's not disappointment, but I guess just challenge is the right word, because I think you're expecting that you're going to be dancing more and then you end up actually dancing much less. And what we see here in the parallel with that transition into more of a principal role is a much greater responsibility on you as an individual, where you said it yourself, you're losing a little bit of that sense of community with your fellow soloists and core, and you've got what can feel like
hmm
a lot of pressure on your own self to make sure you're dancing enough, doing enough, cross training enough. And I think that comes with a whole
yep,
different type of challenges for even those most on top in companies.
yeah. And I didn't even mention the fact that like in my mind, a principal dancer
Mm,
is perfect all the time. And there's this level of like, they are the highest rank of the company. So they are the most put together and the
sure.
like best at everything. And so there's this pressure that like I've put on myself and I'm trying to work through is like, even the principals aren't perfect. We're all human. And, uh, you have done so much work to get to where you are in your career that you should just celebrate that and continue to work, but not to give yourself a hard time. Like these are the years that I hope to enjoy and not beat
Yeah.
myself down because I'm not good enough. Like I've been promoted to this rank because my director thinks I am. And I need to believe that for myself as well. So there's that whole other kind of element of like, well, I've lost kind of the cohort with my fellow company members. Now I'm on my own. Now I need to like do all these things.
It
Oh,
is also a reflection, and the idea of transitioning and promotion in general, whether it's transitioning from a school to another school, a small recital school to a pre-professional school,
yeah.
what is encompassed in this transition and this change is so much more than just the physical technical aspects of our dancing, right?
Yes,
That's where
yes,
what's
yes,
everything you're
yes.
saying right now is exemplifying to me that you were ready to take on this from a mindset perspective. You know what I mean? To own that
Hmm.
confidence, and so much more than just what younger dancers can tend to hyper focus on, which is just our physical, our physicality in the studio. And there's so much more that goes into being what I call the healthy dancer, but there's so much more that goes into just being a dancer than just our technical capabilities in the studio.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't agree more with everything you just said. And that's like part of why I'm kind of helping with the audition process as well, is like school spends so much time training dancers physically. How do you do pirouettes? How do you do adagio and like hold your balance and like all these technical things? But there's that element when you're auditioning of like, how do you present yourself as a professional that schools oftentimes don't have the time to talk students through and expect them to do that. And similar to my transition to principal, like you're just expected to walk into the role. And it's like there's so many other elements in there that you just have to learn. And hopefully you have mentors and guides along the way, which I've been fortunate to be able to vent to more senior principal dancers and talk through. And they're like, that's everything you're going through is normal. You're not alone. And so doing that with pre-pro students, as well as younger students in like a mentorship kind of setting is super important, to just feel like you're not alone and you feel like you have support.
The benefit of
Yeah,
having those resources, whether it's a coach, whether
100%.
it's a dietitian like myself, or a mental health therapist. And
Yeah,
honestly, I usually am encouraging dancers that they have a team, that they're working with multiple different resources, because having those outlets, as you mentioned, are what are essential to really flourish with that balance in their progression as a dancer.
100%. I have a team, like a physical team, as well as a like
Yeah.
mental, psychological.
There's something to be said about speaking with those who have the lived experience of what dancers are going through. So you are truly an incredible resource for them.
So I'll start with the P&B school mentorship program because then Ballet Life
Sure.
Coach branched off of that. But it was started, as I said, during March 2020. Fellow P&B dancers, Amanda Morgan, who she grew up in the P&B school. As I said, I grew up at SAB. So I came kind of not knowing the school system, but she was very ingrained in it. And when she was in school, she had some company mentors that really helped her get to where she is today. And she just kept in the back of her mind saying, like, we really need to build a program like this for the school that connects the students with the company dancers. And so we connected and we started running this program over Zoom when, you know, professional dancers were out of work, had no idea what was going on. Students didn't have classes on Zoom at the start because schools were trying to figure out what was happening. And we met with the top 6 levels of the school. So about age 13 and up through the pre-pro program was called professional division here at PNB. And we met with them every week for an hour, which seems like super aggressive now because
Yeah.
that just shows how much time everyone had. And we just talked about different topics, kind of like had an open mic for all the students to talk about things. We brought up topics like race and dance, body image, confidence, all these things. And now, as we're all back into either normal professional life or in student life with high school, we've transitioned to once a month, 1 hour, and we've grown the program to have 11 company dancers, 2 mentors per level. One level only has 1 mentor. And then it's also aligned with our therapist, Josh Spell, who's incredible. He's a former dancer at PNB, and now therapist at the PNB school. And so we connect as a group. So all 11 mentors and Josh at the beginning of the month, and we talk about, okay, what's the topic we're going to address with the students this month? We determine that, and then Josh has an hour session with each of the levels, and then the mentors has an hour session with each of the levels. That's how the mentorship program is currently run. It's been incredible. I've learned so much from the students, and I hope the students feel supported through their training and all the stresses that come along with it. And some of the sessions aren't even about ballet. They're about, I'm so stressed out about my schoolwork, I'm not sleeping. And we address that. That's something that their well-being is needing right now. Um, and so that's the mentorship program. So at the current moment, it's only for P&B students, and they're semi-required to attend those sessions. And then the ballet life coach, which is my audition business, kind of grew from when I was mentoring the PD program students, professional division, like pre-pro, just about to go into their professional careers. They were just needing a lot of help with their auditions and just needing mentorship through how do you send an email? How do you write a resume? Like, what do I do? I'm so stressed out. So I created templates for resume, cover letter, follow-ups, thank you notes for students to just like take as a starting point and then run with it. And starting last year, I opened it up for one-on-one consultation with students outside of PNB. And then I also started working with schools. So I worked with Houston Ballet, Cincinnati Ballet, CQIB, and Oregon Ballet Theater, either setting up a program, doing workshops, or like a 3-part workshop. So it's been incredible to seeing like the need and the growth and the willingness to work with me. So yeah, it'd be incredible for any of your clients if they need, it's less like psychological help and more like, how do you get your business side ready? Which I think is very different than some of the work that you're doing and other people.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. It's such a fabulous supplement to the work that I do. My audition coaching centers around nutrition and how dancers are fueling for their auditions and, making sure that they're planning pre-performance and post-performance planning and when it comes to meals and snacks. So having someone like you that I can refer to for that supplemental work of those logistics for their actual auditions is critical for a practitioner like myself. So
and it'll be my first like I've helped the PD programs, kind of like PD students kind of get through their career, but now I have this network of like 15 dancers that I've worked with, and like they're my little hens that I'm just like ready to push off, and I'm like, you're all ready. You may not feel confident, but you have everything you need. And similar to what we were talking about before, it's like you just need that person to tell you you're on the right track. Because when you're by yourself doing it on your own, you don't have any resources. You're kind of in your head of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so just at least having someone saying like, no, you're good. Now you just need to send the emails and hope for the best and send follow-ups if you don't hear back. Because that's honestly half the battle.
Again, just going back to that main word that we started with, that transition, which can be so nerve-wracking. The audition process itself is so nerve-wracking. So to have you and your resources is honestly incredible, Cece. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, also, and yours as well. Like, there are just so many elements to just auditioning. Like, that's actually auditioning is our topic this month of mentorship program, because there are just so many different elements you can go into with auditioning. It's like competitiveness, eating, your material, video. Like, I mean, it's like, how do you deal with your colleagues that are getting accepted and you're not? Like, there are just so many different elements to this like stressful time that we need to dig into. So like having you as a resource is incredible for your clients, because you need to fuel yourself. Otherwise you're going to get injured because you're going to be stressing yourself out. You're already in like a crazy state of mind.
Also, just for dancers to learn how to cope with the inevitable, which could be audition rejection, that I'm sure even someone, who eventually makes it to the principal role is going to has experienced those same feelings that come about, and learning to make space for that is something that's so important that dancers can really learn about and build those coping tools.
I'm still dealing with rejection. Even though I have this dream role that everyone aspires to. It's not all daisies and tutus and tiaras. Like it's still just as challenging, just a little bit different challenges, but I'm still not cast in certain pieces that I want to be, or, I don't get this certain performance and someone else does. And like, how do you become okay with that and not let it affect you negatively? And like, how can you just continue with your career and enjoying your journey and
Yeah.
not comparing it to other people's?
It's
Yeah.
lifelong for dancers. It's not, I always say this, it's,
Yeah.
when we're building a fueling plan, right? It's not something, or even just like rebuilding our relationship with food, which takes years upon years, takes a ton of work. It's not something we just check off our to-do list, especially if, if a dancer is recovering from
Right.
disordered eating or an eating disorder. This is a constant, daily, proactive approach, I often say, to all of this work. And I think hearing from you and the constant challenges that you face is just a testament to that. I do have one last question, though. I ask all of my guests on the show, how would you define what it means to be the healthy dancer?
Wow. Healthy dancer. I think as we've talked about, like even just the topic of auditions, like there's so many different like elements to
Yeah.
it. And healthy is one of those like
Mm-hmm.
big words too. Is I think we all think
Mm-hmm.
healthy as diet, but which it is, that's one element of it, but there's also like healthy mindset, healthy like spirituality, whether you believe in whatever, but just like your understanding of yourself in the world, um, all plays into it. So I would say just finding, and it's different for everyone, which makes it challenging. So I think it's finding that equilibrium of all of those different elements that
Mm-hmm.
make a human healthy and getting them all kind of
Absolutely.
equal. Um, so having, an eating plan that hopefully you're not obsessing over, but is something that is fueling you properly, and a mental state that you're not feeling super stressed, but you're not super relaxed and feeling unengaged, like that kind of happy medium, and like feeling like you are fulfilled um emotionally by everything you're doing, whether like, and that's a balance between dance and outside of dance. I'm a huge proponent of ballet not being 100% of your life. I've always either done college on the side, or now I have all my other projects, like something else to think of. So not having ballet be up here and then the rest of your life here. Social life as well, not having like too many parties every single day, or just being
Yeah.
a hermit by yourself, like finding that happy medium that works in all of the different elements of your life. So it's actually something that I'm hoping to do as the year is starting. Like, how do I reevaluate my life and like create that balance that I feel good with? And again, that's different for everyone, because some people are going to need some more alone time, or some people are more social butterflies. But how do you find that balance that you feel like you can perform your best?
Finding that equilibrium and what that means from an individual perspective. In my opinion, one of the most important aspects of this is the individuality, and the fact that we can't just, whether it's finding a nutrition plan or a coping tool, whatever it might be, what works for one dancer might not necessarily what works for another dancer. And that's important to understand. It's also trial and error,
Yeah.
right? Finding that equilibrium, right?
Yes.
Finding what foods are working great for fueling or giving you energy one day, what foods are working great for like helping you relax in the evening, and so forth. So that was incredible. Thank you so much for tuning
Yeah.
in with me today. I loved chatting with you,
Of
and we will be in touch
course.
because I have some dancers to send to
Me as well.
you.
Perfect. Sounds great. And thank you everyone for watching, and get your team and mentors to help you on your
Yes.
journey.